Alright, what's going on, you guys? It's Rahul here, back again with another video, and today, with the 2021 NFL Draft, wrapped up and all, I wanted to come out here and give my draft grades for every NFL team and just give my thoughts on how they did. So yeah, you guys can already tell from the title what this video is gonna be about. So yeah, before we do get started, I do want to say real quick, sorry that, this video was supposed to be out a lot earlier, but because of school, I got busy with school and also because of that, you guys are seeing it now. But anyways, of course, before we get started, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed, as it really helps out the channel. So let's try to get 10 likes on this video and hopefully make it bang, since this video is coming out a little bit late. Also, make sure to subscribe if you guys are new so you do not miss out on any new videos like this. Plus, we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and once we hit 1,000 subscribers, I am finally gonna do a face reveal. But with that being said, let's get this video started. This video is gonna be kind of long, so sorry about that. But anyways, we first got the Arizona Cardinals, and my grade for them is a B+. I mean, Arizona, to me, they had a solid draft. They picked up Zaven Collins in the first round, and I love Zaven Collins, so that already gave them a pretty high grade. Along with that, they did get Rondale Moore as an additional pass catcher for Kyler Murray, and I really like Rondale Moore a lot, so that's pretty good for the Cardinals too. Plus, they did address the cornerback position and the offensive line, and overall, it was just a very decent draft for the Cardinals. I do kind of wish they might have, addressed the cornerback position a little bit more, since that was a really big need. And I will say, even though as much as I love Zaven Collins, maybe if they took someone like Caleb Farley or Greg Newsome, this grade might be a little higher, since cornerback, it was a big need. But overall, it was a pretty decent draft for Arizona, not terrible. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons, and they also got a B+, and they had a pretty nice draft to me. I mean, they did take Kyle Pitts, and I thought that was a good choice, since if they weren't going to trade back, Kyle Pitts was probably the best choice, since he's just too good of a player to really just pass up on. And they did address the defensive and the defense and the offensive line, and Richie Grant was a really good choice in the second round. And overall, I thought it was a pretty good draft for the Atlanta Falcons. Up next, we got the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to give them an A, and they did exactly what I wanted them to do. They addressed the receiving core and the pass rush, as they did lose Yannick Ngakoue and Matthew Judon, and they really addressed the receiving core by taking Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace, plus Odafe Owe to help, in hopes of fixing the pass rush. And along with that, they did improve the offensive line by picking up Ben Cleveland. So overall, I thought it was a really good draft for the Baltimore Ravens, and I really like what they did. And for the Buffalo Bills, I'm going to give them a B+. And the Bills, to me, they had a solid draft. Now, I really do wish they got someone like a Javonte Williams, but maybe they do really believe in Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, so maybe that's why they did not take Javonte Williams. But yeah, the run game, hopefully it's decent for Buffalo. Well, I'm a Patriots fan. If the run game isn't good for Buffalo, that's going to be good for me, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. I mean, hopefully for the Bills, the run game is good. However, I really do like how they improved the pass rush. They spent their first two picks on Gregory Rousseau and Carlos Basham Jr., and then they solidified the offensive line and the secondary. Now, overall, I thought it was a pretty good draft for them. Only complaint I really have is that I wish they did address the running back position, but overall, I really like what they did. For the Carolina Panthers, I'm going to give them an A. I really like the Panthers draft a lot. They started out by addressing the defense by taking South Carolina's J.C. Horn, and I get why some people are skeptical about this pick, but I like J.C. Horn a lot, and to me, there's actually a case that he's better than Patrick Surtain, and in my opinion, he is a little more NFL ready. So yeah, there's that for you. But along with J.C. Horn, they did make other really good picks like Terrace Marshall Jr., Tommy Tremble, Brady Christensen, Chuba Hubbard, and Davion Nixon. So I loved what they did improving the weapons and the offensive line, and they also improved the defense. And all I can say is that I really love the Panthers draft. Sorry about the voice crack, but I really like the Carolina Panthers draft, and I mean, they are building something special in Carolina. But up next, we got the Chicago Bears, and I'm going to give them an not an E. I'm giving them an A. It's very easy to see why Chicago gets an A, alright? They were able to land Justin Fields, who hopefully can be their franchise quarterback. Plus, they made some other good additions later, like Tevin Jenkins, who I thought was a very good pickup, Khalil Herbert, and Thomas Graham Jr. And if Justin Fields can be their franchise quarterback, then Chicago could be a really good team, very good team soon, and hopefully they can be a consistent, playoff threat, like how, kind of like the 2018 Chicago Bears. You guys know what I mean, like somewhat at the level of that 2018 team. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here since I think it's pretty easy to see why they receive a high grade, but anyways, now we got the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm going to give them a B. Now, if you guys saw my video before the draft, you know I wanted them to take Penei Sewell, and while they didn't take him, it was still a really decent draft for the Bengals. They did get Jamar Chase at 5, and of course, while I do wish they took Penei Sewell, well, I'll admit, it's not a terrible choice to take Jamar Chase. They did address the offensive line too by taking Jackson Carman and Dante Smith and Trey Hill, plus they did bolster the defense by taking Joseph Osai, Cam Sample, and Wyatt Hubert. I'll admit, I wish they did take Sewell, but overall, I think it was a pretty good draft for them. But I will say, if the offensive line is still bad and Penei Sewell ends up panning out onto the Detroit Lions, well, this grade will probably drop in the future. But anyways, moving on, we got the Cleveland Browns, and I'm gonna give them an A. Alright, all I can say is that the Cleveland Browns are gonna be scary, and they just absolutely killed the draft. They really don't have a lot of weaknesses, and they just made their team better in general, alright? I love their first 2 picks in Greg Newsome and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, all I can say is that he might be the biggest steal of the draft. Now, there was a report that, came out that said, he had a heart condition, so that's understandable, but if he can stay healthy, that could be a massive steal, and Greg Newsome even makes the secondary even better, and I really like what they're doing to give Denzel Ward and Ronnie Harrison some help in the secondary, and all I can say is that the Browns are going to be special, and just good stuff from Cleveland. All I can say is they had a great draft. Moving on, we got the Dallas Cowboys now, and I'm going to give them an A-. The Cowboys, they did miss out on J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain, but they still had a good draft in my opinion. It was pretty good. They really did bolster the defense a lot, and I have to admit, I did have a bad feeling that they were not going to address the defense, but of course, thankfully, that they did actually address the defense. But anyways, they did get Micah Parsons and picked up the likes of Micah Parsons, Kelvin Joseph, Osi Odigizua, Jared Wilcox, and they also added some offensive linemen, and honestly, they did the right thing, so it was a pretty good draft for Dallas, and that's really all I have to say. Thankfully, they did address the defense, and if the defense improves, the Cowboys, maybe they are not mid, and maybe they actually are a good team. But next up, we got the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos, they do not really have a lot of weaknesses at this point. The only weakness they really have is, the quarterback and the quarterback position, and maybe they just trust Drew Luck, so maybe that's why they did not, end up taking a quarterback like Justin Fields or Mac Jones. But anyways, getting to the Broncos draft grades, it seems like they really want to build a godly defense since they did pick up the likes of Patrick Surtain, Jamar Johnson, and Baron Browning to bolster the defense even more. Along with that, they picked up Javonte Williams and Quinn Miners, so that was also pretty good. And while they did pass on Justin Fields, as I said before, that does drop them a little bit, but it was still a really good draft for the Mile High City. And that secondary is just gonna be scary. That's all I'm gonna say, and it's gonna be pretty useful if you have to deal with the Kansas City Chiefs in your division. Anyways, next up we got the Detroit Lions, and I'm gonna give them an A-. It was a nice draft for Detroit. they had quite a bit of needs, and unfortunately they didn't have a lot of draft capital, but they did do a pretty good job with the picks they had. First, they formed one of the best offensive lines in the league by selecting Penei Sewell, and I love Penei Sewell. And then they improved the defense and the wide receiver core a little bit. I really liked what they did. I just wish they improved the wide receiver core a little more. But aside from that, not a bad draft for the Detroit Lions. Up next, we got the Green Bay Packers, and I'm going to give them a B+. Now, the Packers draft, it was mainly overshadowed by the Aaron Rodgers drama, video on that coming soon, but they still had a pretty nice draft. They drafted Eric Stokes and Amari Rodgers, plus Josh Myers in hopes of replacing Corey Linsley. And for the most part, I do think they did an alright job of addressing their needs. They did do a really good job addressing the cornerback position. Wide receiver, yeah, they could have done a little better. I thought they did an okay draft. I thought they had an okay draft, and it wasn't bad for Green Bay despite the Aaron Rodgers dilemma. And now we got the Houston Texans, and I'm going to give them a C. The Texans had hardly had any draft capital, and honestly, they just did the best they could. I mean, what can you really do with only 5 draft picks? I really wish they addressed the defense a little more, as a majority of the picks were offensive players, and it wasn't a great draft for Houston. But then again, what can you really do with only 5 picks? Let's just be real here. Not a great draft for Houston, but then again, they only had 5 picks. But anyways, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm going to give them a B. The Colts draft was not out of this world, but it was solid. They bolstered the defense by getting Kwity Paye, so that was pretty good in the first round. And in the draft, they mainly focused on defense. And Indy, they're a pretty complete team, I'll admit that before, but they had some weaknesses. While they didn't have a terrible draft, I really do wish they did more to get another wide receiver for Carson Wentz. I really do wish they did, but even then, it wasn't a bad draft for the Colts. But anyways, now we got the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm gonna give them an A. The Jaguars, obviously they were able to land Trevor Lawrence with the #1 pick, and that alone gave them a decently high grade. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Travis Etienne pick, but they did make some good selections later on, as they picked up guys like Tyson Campbell, Walker Little, Andre Sisco, Jay Tufele, and Jordan Smith. And it was a really good draft for the Jags, and they should be a much better team next season. And while the Etienne pick, while I'm not a huge fan of it, it was still a really nice draft for Jacksonville. For the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm gonna give them an A, and the Chiefs, the draft went pretty well for them. After seeing what happened in the Super Bowl this past year, they just revamped the offensive line, and it's clear they wanted to be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They bolstered it even more by taking Creed Humphrey, and they improved the defense by getting Nick Bolton, and they selected Cornell Powell in hopes of giving Mahomes even more weapons. And overall, it was pretty good for Kansas City. For the Las Vegas Raiders, I'm going to give them a C, alright? The Raiders, I don't know what's up with them making questionable first-round picks, or, I mean, seriously, what is up with the Raiders drafting, alright? They just are not good at it. Anyways, the Alex Leatherwood pick, it was really questionable. However, they did make some nice picks defensively. It was alright, you know. They did get Trayvon Moore, and that was a pretty good pick in my opinion, plus Divine Diablo and Tyree Gillespie. So that was pretty good, and hopefully they can fix that god-awful, you know, defense. Like, not completely fix it, but at least improve it. But I wasn't a huge fan of the Raiders draft overall. They reached at the Leatherwood pick, and they didn't address the cornerback position a lot. Now, maybe they'll switch some of those guys to cornerback, but still, it was not an awesome draft for the Raiders. I'm gonna give them a C. For the Los Angeles Chargers, I'm gonna give them an A. And what can I say about LAC? Sorry about that voice crack, but anyways, they have been fantastic this offseason, okay? First, they improved the offensive line a ton in free agency by getting Corey Linsley and Matt Filer. Then in the draft, they get Rashawn Slater at pick 13, which is a really good pick, of course. Asante Samuel Jr. to help make that defense even better. Plus, give Justin Herbert another weapon in Josh Palmer. I mean, the Chargers draft was really good, and the Chargers this offseason have just been amazing, okay? They deserve a fat A, and all I can say is that the future is bright for the Los Angeles Chargers. And now we got their partner in the same city, the Los Angeles Rams, and that is, I'm gonna give them a B, alright? The Rams, they didn't have a ton of draft capital, so they had to do the most they could with it, and they just tried improving the team overall, especially the wide receiver position, as they selected 3 receivers and tried improving the front 7 too. I thought it was decent, but the Tutu Atwell pick selection, it was not exactly great, and I do wish they did a little bit more in hope to, you know, improve the safety position. But I will say Jordan Fuller, he's pretty underrated. Maybe they trust him, but I really do wish they did more for the safety position. But it was not a bad draft, not a terrible draft for the Los Angeles Rams. Now we got the Miami Dolphins, and I'm gonna give them an A, okay? The Dolphins, they had a really good draft. They had a lot of capital, so that also helped, but they reunited Tua with his former teammate in Jalen Waddle in hopes of improving the wide receiving core. They made the defense even better with the additions of Jalen Phillips and Javon Holland, and they got Tua Tagovailoa some much needed protection in Liam Eichenberg. Plus, they got another tight end in Hunter Long, so even more weapons. Honestly, they did the right things overall, and I thought it was a good draft for Miami. For the Minnesota Vikings, I'm gonna give them an A. the Vikes, they may have gotten the steal of the draft, the biggest steal of the draft, in Virginia Tech's Christian Darrisaw at pick 23. Plus, they got a potential franchise quarterback in Kellen Mond if and when they decide to move on from Kirk Cousins, and made several other good picks like Wyatt Davis at 86th overall. And a 100% healthy Minnesota team should be a borderline playoff team, and at the very least, and they just had a really good draft. So good on the Vikings. For the New England Patriots, I'm gonna give my Patriots an A-. I'm a Patriots fan. I have to say, I was pretty satisfied with their draft. They got a potential successor to Cam Newton in Mac Jones, and they made the defense even better. And I mean just even better by taking Christian Barmore in the second round. That might be a legit steal, Christian Barmore in the second round. And they got Ronnie Perkins, and I also really like the Ramondre Stevenson pick by New England. However, I do wish they did a little more to address the wide receiver position, so that is why it's an A- compared to maybe an A, but maybe they believe in, the wide receivers like N'Keal Harry and Jacoby Myers, and, maybe they also believe the tight ends can do a lot of work in the receiving game, so maybe they trust the guys they have on the roster right now. But overall, I think it was still a very good draft for my New England Patriots. For the New Orleans Saints, I'm gonna give them a C+. The Saints, they didn't have a ton of weaknesses, and their draft was okay in my opinion, but the Peyton Turner pick, maybe they know something we don't, but I feel like it was a reach, and if they did like him, there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe they could have taken him like in the second round. And I also really do wish they made greater efforts to get a wide receiver too, but I guess it was an okay draft for the Saints. And for the New York Giants, I'm gonna give them an A-. I'm a big fan of their first three picks. Kadarius Toney, he will help support Daniel Jones in what is his make or break year. Plus Azeez Ojulari and Aaron Robinson, they're gonna make that defense even better. I just wish they did more to address the offensive line, but those picks, I mean, they still had a pretty nice draft, but hey, if these picks do not end up panning out, of course the draft grade will go low down, and if the offensive line is still not good, then yeah, this grade is probably going to go down, but I'm going to give them an A-. I thought it was a pretty good draft overall, just wish they did a little more to address the offensive line, you know what I mean? Anyways, now we got the New York Jets, and that is, I'm going to give them a B+. The Jets draft to me was really good. They improved the offense by taking Zach Wilson, who could potentially be their franchise quarterback, got a potential building block on the offensive line in Elijah Vera Tucker, and added some weapons in Elijah Moore and Michael Carter. Plus, they made the defense even better by taking Jamin Sherwood and another Michael Carter, not the running back, Michael Carter the safety. Anyways, I really like what the Jets did, and I'm glad they are putting an actual team around Zach Wilson, unlike what they do with Sam Darnold. But the Jets, to me, are one of the biggest winners of this draft, so overall, really good by the Jets. Now we got the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going to give them a B+. And I have to admit, Philly did a much better job than I thought. I had a lot of doubts because it was Howie Roseman, and Howie Roseman is a damn idiot a lot of times, but they actually did a pretty good job in my opinion. They selected the reigning Heisman winner in Devonta Smith and prevented the New York Giants from getting their hands on Devonta Smith, so that wasn't a win in itself. And they made several other good additions to the defense, and they also got Landon Dickerson out of Alabama in hopes of improving the offensive line, and it was a pretty decent draft for Philadelphia, but I do wish they maybe got another pass catcher for Jalen Hurts, but hey, it was pretty good. Now we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm gonna give the Steelers an A. Pittsburgh really needed to fix that run game, especially with James Conner's departure, and they also need to fix the offensive line, and they selected probably the best running back in this class in Najee Harris, plus they got guys like Pat Freiermuth, Kendrick Green, and a potential steal in Quincy Roche. I don't really have much else to say besides that it was a good draft for the Steelers. And for the San Francisco 49ers, I'm going to give them a B+. Getting Trey Lance was already a big win, since now they got a potential franchise quarterback, and they picked up guys like Trey Sermon, Aaron Banks, and Ambry Thomas, and not much else I have to say besides And besides that, it was decent. And for the Seattle Seahawks, I'm gonna give them a C. Now, the Hawks only had 3 draft picks, so I have to admit, I mean, you can't do a lot with 3 draft picks, but even then, I was not a massive fan of the draft. Yeah, they got another wide receiver for Russell Wilson. I do like the Trey Brown pick, but I would have preferred for them to address the offensive line even more. I was just not a huge fan of it. Plus, I mean, Russell Wilson was frustrated with Seattle because the offensive line was not good. So I really do wish they did more to address the offensive line. But for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the reigning champs, I'm going to give them an A-. The Buccaneers really do not have a lot of weaknesses on their roster, and all they had to do was just add depth and just improve the team even more. They added to the front 7 by getting Joe Tyron with the final pick in the first round. Plus, they got a potential successor to TB12 in Kyle Trask, and they added another wide receiver in Jalen Darden. And honestly, it was a good one for Tampa Bay. Anyways, now we got the Tennessee Titans, and I'm going to give them a B+. And the Titans, they had quite a bit of needs heading into the draft, and I liked what they did. They addressed the cornerback position by taking Caleb Farley and Elijah Molden, got Dylan Radunz, I don't know how you say his name, okay, plus Dez Fitzpatrick in hopes of patching up the void Corey Davis left. I really do wish they did a little bit more to address the wide receiver position, but it was not a bad draft for Tennessee. And the final team we got is the Washington football team, and I'm going to give Washington an A-. Washington had a really nice draft. They had a great defense to begin with and improved it even more by taking Kentucky's Jamin Davis. Plus, the offense got even better with the selections of Sam Cosmi and De'Ami Brown in, hopes of, supplying the quarterback with even more protection and even more weapons. And overall, good draft for the Washington football team. But that is all I'm gonna have to say for this video. Those are my grades for every team for the 2021 NFL draft. But yeah, with that being said, thank you guys a lot for watching. It truly means a lot to me. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. Let's try to get 10 likes on this video, as I said before. Subscribe if you guys are new and enjoy the content on here so you do not miss out on any new videos like this. Plus, we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and once we hit our goal, I am finally going to do a face reveal. But with that being said, I'm out, you guys.